So much going on in these areas where this really frontier machine learning generation capabilities that are now being productized.
At some point, or maybe even now, translators and LSPs are going to be required or asked to translate something that has been written by AI.
And welcome everyone to another episode of Slator Pod, quick news show this week. Hello, Esther.
Hey, Florian.
So busy preparing for another great SlatorCon remote next week. And we'll also be launching a new report, the Interpreting Services and Technology report that's going to be out early next week. Very comprehensive. Frankly, I think this is the first time anybody looked at the interpreting world in such a comprehensive manner, right?
Yeah, it's very deep dive, comprehensive.
Absolutely. Looking forward to launching this. And then there's another one in close succession. We'll be launching another report. Just teasing this here. You'll be hearing from it, of course, very soon. But today we have a quick news show. We'll be talking about AI writing and LSP. Quick update on the interpreter strike based on a piece that's not from us. That's from the European Union Observer. That was out today. Lionbridge is building out their gaming franchise, and then Airbnb is launching some additional translation MT capabilities. So we'll be talking about that today. One thing I was looking forward to, Esther, was last week when with all the Apple, was it this week or last week? Might have been this week.
It was pretty recent.
It was pretty recent. With all the iPhone and the big Apple event, we were trying to see if there was anything related to machine translation, because they used to have, like, each time there was some kind of announcement, some new feature, new functionality. This time, crickets.
I usually kind of protest to watching the Apple event. I don't know. It's always on in my house. And I'm like, oh no, it's not going to be interesting for me. And then, almost inevitably halfway through, my ears prick up because they talk about something, translation, language, multilingual. And I'm like, oh, what's that? But yeah, like you said, not this time.
Not this time at all, which, I don't know. It's fine. One thing that I'm using quite a lot on the phone in terms of MT is Google Lens. Have you ever used that?
No, I haven't, no.
So Google Lens is, the way I use it is, if there's photos posted on Twitter in a language I can't read.
So like with text in the photo? In
the photo, right? So basically you select the photo, you go, and then you kind of scroll down a little bit, and then it gives you the option of using Google Lens to basically OCR and then MT the text that's on the photo. I mean, I guess it was more meant to, like, you're outside taking a photo of whatever, the Ukrainian or Chinese or Japanese sign, but actually now it's been super useful for me for just stuff that when somebody takes like a screenshot of something that's in another language that I can't read, then I'm using that quite a lot. So that's not an Apple feature. I mean, that's basically Google just embedded on the iPhone, right? So who knows, maybe Apple's gonna launch something similar. The only thing they launched was this kind of, that I noticed, was this like crop picture thing. But yeah, that's for a different podcast. I'm sure there's like 7,000 other Apple podcasts that talk about that. In terms of writing, though, we've been coming across a lot of these AI writers. We've talked a number of times about copy AI, because they're so public in sharing their progress and their financials. But you wrote a piece around if that's a threat or an opportunity for LSPs. Tell us more.
Yeah, like you said, I think we've covered a few companies in this space before. Copy AI. There was also Other Side, which we covered, I think, one of their funding rounds not so long ago. But like you said, a ton of startups, obviously based on natural language generation, NLG, that are popping up, whether they've been there for a while or sort of just starting out, but definitely gaining traction in terms of more funding going into it, seem to be acquiring new users and things like that. I mean, just briefly, how it works for those who don't know is that you would create an account, probably log on, brief the AI writing system with really just normally a few key inputs, like I want to write a blog post about machine translation, for example. You click a button and it will present you with the fully written text of, you know, whatever you've told it to write. And then normally there's an interface where you can edit the text. So that's sort of how most of them tend to work. I mean, for when I was writing the article, just did really some sort of fairly short desk research, looking into some of the different ones. Literally just Googled copy AI, because that, like you said, is the one that's probably best known to us. Came up with sort of a dozen, maybe more, just on the first page of search results, that are offering pretty much the same thing in different, you know, slightly different variations in user interface and different things that they're offering. But they tend to be targeted towards things like creating emails, product descriptions, blogs, like I said, some sales copy. I mean, some of them are even saying you can write your resignation letter using this kind of stuff.
Don't do that.
Don't do it, no. But, you know, I think you've also tested out a couple of these. I tested out a few. I mean, and I thought I would play around with, you know, a subject that I know. So I was like, write about machine translation and its relationship with humans. And then what you'd get back is, you know, there is a complex relationship between machine translation and humans. And the first paragraph would kind of read pretty well like an intro. But then, I don't know, kind of getting a bit sort of into the weeds and a bit sort of weird when you get into the body of the article. But you can edit it. So the thing here that I noticed when looking at all of these different solutions is that it's not trying to say, okay, we're going to write a properly well-crafted blog, really well thought out, really well researched, etc. What it's saying is, for copywriters, for content creators, let us help remove your writer's block. Let us give you inspiration, be a starting point, or however, you know, you want to phrase it. I think Copy AI's tagline was something like, say goodbye to the blank page. But yeah, let's get to the sort of nitty gritty. We're talking about translation here. So, I mean, I think that the basic premise is, if there are more and more of these AI writers, or AI written content is going to become more present in professional lives. Surely at some point, or maybe even now, translators and LSPs are going to be required or asked to translate something that has been written by AI. I mean, does this change workflows, for example? How would an LSP go about translating, you know, this kind of AI written text? So we kind of discussed a bit about that, what the possible workflows. Would you then, you know, do a kind of edit on the source first of all, the AI written text, to correct it or perfect it first? But also, I think in terms of, is it a threat for LSPs as AI writing? A lot of them are already multilingual. So most of them, you can write copy in sort of 25 plus languages. But it means that you're writing the brief or those short inputs in German and you get a German output. There's a few of them that support what, you know, we would consider to be translation, where you put input in a language, whether English, French, whatever, and you can program it or tell it to generate text in a different language. But the point is, they're already, a lot of them, multilingual. So does that then alleviate the need for translation of this kind of content altogether? Potentially, but I think also, you know, we kind of closed the article by talking about a potential opportunity for LSPs, which is like, well, why not think about actually using this AI writing, or starting to offer sort of AI writing services, maybe even productizing your own AI writer with NLG, or partnering with some kind of third party to provide the technology. LSPs provide the kind of editing service on top of that, and then the multilingual component of translation. So yeah, in a nutshell, a big nutshell.
It's fascinating. I think there's just so much going on, and the fact that there's so many new startups that are trying to productize or make a company out of this specific use case indicates to me that, I mean, this technology is almost, it's not vanilla, but like it's a lot more about the commercialization and getting the first, 500,000 users on your platform and getting the money to then really go and actually improve it. So it's an opportunity to large LSPs as well. Like, why wouldn't a large LSP be able to develop this in-house without having to rely on a third party? Obviously, these companies aren't building all of these things from scratch. The startups, right? Those are often very small companies.
Well, they built on top of things like the language models that we've talked about a few different times. Yeah.
This might become something that LSPs, offer internally, or like have some internal capabilities and then can customize it for very specific clients as well. So yeah, it's just that you feel there's so much going on in this space, in the writing space, multilingual writing space, also in the dubbing, like the AI dubbing space, machine dubbing space. There was another funding round, which we'll be covering probably by the time this is out, by Dub AI. Also based in India. We had Dubverse on the podcast before, etc., and XL8 last week. So much going on in these areas where this really frontier machine learning generation capabilities, like language generation capabilities, are now being productized. That's a lot of heavy words right there, but anyway. So in the world of human interpreting, unfortunately, the strike at the European Parliament among interpreters continues. Let me define the strike here. They continue to work at the booth and on site. They just refuse to interpret those that dial in remotely, right? That's the point of contention there. And apparently the negotiations, according to the publication called EU Observer. So apparently the negotiations between the European Parliament staff interpreters and the administrations have collapsed. That's the word they used. And now they're trying to get the European Parliament President Roberta Mesilla involved. So very high level mediation attempts there. So I mean, we did unpack this on previous pods. It's just that, yeah, it's obviously one of the world's largest interpreting services. And it's, it's very important and interesting how they resolve this going forward, because it's at this kind of crossroads of, remote interpreting, technology, use of third-party vendors to support the service, but still have the highly qualified internal staff interpreters there. So it's a very interesting set of circumstances, and I'd be really curious how this will eventually resolve, right? Because I think we're talking about hundreds of interpreters there.
Well, it's been going on for a while as well, so you hope that they can find some kind of resolution.
Correct, and then it ends basically by saying the strike is set to continue to the 27th of September. So I'm not sure if that means that they'll end it there, or if basically this is just kind of the next point in this saga. So we'll be covering this, but for now, just want to give a brief update. Still going on, again, high level mediation attempts being tried here, and so back in the corporate world, Lionbridge likes games, so they did that $1 billion deal on the data for AI. Are they trying to do a $1 billion deal on the game side?
That would be difficult, only because most of the gaming companies out there are not anywhere near that kind of size or scale. But yeah, they bought another game services provider, I suppose you'd say. It's a company called Game Tester, which is a game testing platform. It does what it says on the tin. So it's based in Australia. I think they also have a bit of a presence in South Africa, UK, quite small, probably sort of 20 to 30 employees or so. And it's not a done deal yet, but they've signed a definitive agreement to acquire Game Tester, and it will become a part of the Lionbridge Games division, which, I mean, I think we've written about in the past as well, because Lionbridge has already acquired a couple of different gaming sort of voiceover type studios in the past. So they've also acquired the LA-based game localization studio called Rocket Sound. That was back in 2021. And they did a Berlin-based game localizer called Mouse Power earlier in 2022. So the games, I mean, Lionbridge Games, you're sort of typically providing mostly localization or game localization services, but also sort of, by the sounds of it, starting to go beyond localization. So this is not a localization-related acquisition. It's, community-based game testing.
Generally, localization testing has been one of the core businesses at Lionbridge forever.
But this is not localization testing. It's community-based game testing, right? So they're actually testing the game.
Got it.
I don't think it's specifically sort of the QA testing that you would see as like a next step after localization. Basically, game tester, for game developers and publishers around the world, it gives them access to this big pool of gamers that clients can then get feedback on a game as it's being developed. I mean, maybe some of that involves getting feedback on maybe the developed versions in different languages, but I think it's specifically on how the game it has been developed as well.
From a business model point of view, it seems like another kind of crowd sourcing type of, liaising with thousands and thousands of individuals.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good. A company that has millions and millions of users is Airbnb. And this week they expanded the use of machine translation. And we all know that Airbnb runs on, drumroll, modern MT.
Okay, because surely they run on more than that. I was like, what is it? Google, AWS? No, translate. Modern MT.
Airbnb's machine translation runs on modern MT, which is now owned fully by Translated. And our very own Andrew Smart visited them this week in Rome. No, that was last week. Hang on. And now he flew on to Vegas.
He's going to all the hot spots.
Yeah, it's going from Rome to Vegas. I don't think there might have been a indirect flight there. So now he's at the ALC conference in Vegas. There was a discussion there between going to AMTA, the machine translation conference, which is also this week in Orlando. Huge agenda. I mean, I looked at the conference proceedings. It's like 400 pages of technical papers and like lots of people there. Very exciting agenda. Followed it on Twitter. So AMTA going on this week in Orlando, and then ALC in Las Vegas. Both, of course, cities. I wouldn't say no to visiting.
What's the news about Airbnb, Florian?
Yeah, what's the news in Airbnb? All right, I'll bring it full circle. AMT again was as machine translation. So let me bring this full circle, a segue into Airbnb's machine translation, which they now used for reviews after expanding to messages this summer, right? So I just booked an Airbnb, and obviously it's all English, but if I was, liaising with somebody in a country that wouldn't want to communicate to me in English, I could use MT to translate the message. And now reviews are also being translated now by Airbnb, what they call the translation engine. I mean, that's a ton of content, right? We all know that probably in terms of volumes, like travel reviews, like user-generated travel reviews is probably right up there with like the biggest
area of application, or
biggest areas of application of like it used to maybe be like super light post edited, but now it's all fully MT. So this is like one of the biggest and most useful kind of applications of machine translation, right? I mean, if you don't speak Japanese, click, boom, it's there. So good. This is a great deal for modern MT, of course, for Translate. It's a fantastic use case to have a client like that. And so congrats on expanding to include reviews and having the whole platform very much kind of multilingual at this point. So for us, please join us next week at SlatorCon Remote. Lots of MT discussion as well. We talk about risk in MT, kind of anonymization. We talk about quality estimation. We also have Zoo Digital on for media localization and lots more. I'll be giving my 2 cents on how the industry is heading into 2023. So join us there and see you next week.
See you.